Hello! My name's Brett, also known as Rodney.
I'm Alex.
I'm Charlie. Welcome to the tasting of Darryl Catlin's amazing wines.
Also, Charlie is known as the Horse.
Rodney and the Horse. Yes. And Alex.
And Alex.
I know.
This is Harvey. Hello. Are you cute? Yes. We're going to go and have a look at bottling. Rodney and the Horse. Let's go, Harvey.
Let's just crack on and taste
Yeah.
these incredible wines.
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
So
who makes this wine?
exactly. Who does make this wine? Well, Darryl Catlin makes these wines. Not only does he make these Rodney and the Horse wines for us, Vinoteca, but he makes a number of other wines under his own label, Catlin Wines, from Adelaide Hills Fruit. But we are going to concentrate on these wines today. Rodney and the Horse from Clare Valley. We're going to talk about the story in a minute, aren't we?
Yes,
but
we
we've
are.
actually got two different vintages of the Riesling and the Shiraz.
Oh, aren't we?
So
Yeah,
got
we're
a-
doing a little comparison tasting
We
of
got
vintages.
2016
Yep.
and 2020 Riesling, and 2016 Shiraz, and 2019
So nice. We can do a
Shiraz.
little comparative tasting,
Yeah.
as you said, Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Absolutely. And I'm getting thirsty, so let's start talking about
Okay.
where we are.
Shall I do the honours?
Yes, please.
Because it's
Okay.
So yeah, where are we? We're focusing on South Australia, which is in the south of Australia,
Funnily enough.
but it's in the central part of South Australia. And then actually, when you look at the map, it's very much concentrated on the southeast coast of South Australia, as it sort of borders with Victoria and New South Wales. And it's fascinating because it's actually a tiny region when we look at how much is actually planted.
yeah.
But it's responsible for about 50% of all of Australia's
It's crazy.
production.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
For that tiny little
It's tiny,
place in
relatively tiny compared to Victoria, its neighbour.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. But it's it's got all these sort of big wine regions,
Yeah.
Riverland
Surrounding,
and Barossa and Adelaide.
Yeah.
So it's a very important part of Australia for winemaking. And within South Australia, we have the beautiful and very picturesque Clare Valley, where we are getting these wines from. And it's an amazing little region. It's a real sort of jewel, they sort of call it, don't they, of Australian winemaking. And it's a bit deceptive calling it a valley. It's really sort of a mix of valleys
Yes,
and
it is.
hills.
That's right. It's got a lot of hills.
A lot of hills,
Yeah.
a lot of valleys, and it's interesting because it's very historical. It's got a lot of history behind it. Very old sort of wineries and vineyards there. And what I love is that you can get all sorts from the Clare Valley. I always think of sort of France as sort of the pairings of the great varieties that you can get. But it's incredible to have a region that can do, a tiny region that can do both an incredibly, as we will taste now, zesty and bright and vibrant Riesling, and it can also do such a full-bodied Shiraz,
Yeah.
but also it's producing Malbec, it's
Yeah.
producing Cabernet Sauvignon, so it's an amazing little place.
Yeah.
Have you been?
It's a jewel. Yes, I have been.
Yes?
Yeah. In fact, I lived there a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah. So it is. It's stunning, and it's enough out of Adelaide to really feel like you are in the middle of nowhere.
it's about 100k.
Yeah, so it's about
North
an hour and a
of-
half north of Adelaide.
Yeah.
And it really is stunning. And like you say, maybe it's not so much a valley as I like to think of it as undulations.
Ah,
It is.
Great words.
Undulations up to sort of 400, 500 meters.
yeah, which is very
So
important.
it's got a bit of height in that region.
Yeah, and it's very continental, isn't it? It's
Yes,
that bit set
continental
away
climate.
from the
Not
from
typically,
the coast.
not cool climate, not strictly cool climate,
No.
but continental, so hot in the summer, pretty cold in the winter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of rain and even slate and sleet, and there's bits of balls of ice. What they
so
called
terrifying in the Clare Valley. Slate falling from the sky.
Ice balls,
for your
yeah.
for your Negramaro.
Yeah, no,
Hail.
the hail. Thank you very
Rodney.
much.
You're such a Rodney.
That's Clare Valley,
But I think also, like as you said, Charlie, that sort of like combination of or contrast of heat and cold, coldness in the evening, but heat in the day. And I think that's what's really special about this area, because it gives you wines of finesse, fineness, fragrance,
elegance,
and elegance.
That fits
absolutely.
us because we are all about finesse and elegance and class.
There's only one
Great.
person here that's got finesse and class and elegance.
Class in a glass.
Yes,
Class.
class and a cheer.
Let's talk about Darryl, shall we?
Let's. Come on.
Thanks for
Because-
the intro
Dazza.
to Claire, and then
Dazza.
let's get tasting.
Because
So-
you both know Darryl
Yes,
pretty well.
yes.
You've
Well,
known him for
Charlie knows him
how
very,
long?
very well.
Long time. You've met him, haven't you?
I've not.
You
not
will
had the pleasure.
You will have the pleasure soon. So Darryl, I've known him for 22 years.
Gosh.
So I lived in South Australia in 2099, and that's when I met him. And he was already a wine fanatic at that point, but he hadn't studied winemaking. But fast forward a few years, and he was working in retail, so he was vastly knowledgeable about wines. But then he studied wines at university, and then he went into winemaking, and he quite quickly worked his way up to Shaw and Smith, assistant winemaker, and then head winemaker for Martin Shaw, which is an amazing Adelaide Hills winery. And so Darryl actually is based in the Adelaide Hills. He's now doing his own thing, but he also runs a vineyard called Sidewood in the Adelaide Hills, which he doesn't belong to him, but they let him do his own thing. So he's created his own series of wines called Catlin wines. He uses and sources incredible fruit from the Adelaide Hills, and he's got this range of wines, of which in our current feature we have the Glencoe Shiraz 2016 and the Montepulciano,
Oh yes.
all from really low yielding old dry grown fruit in the Adelaide Hills, and they are awesome.
They're stunning.
So
good wine.
He's doing so many things.
He's doing a lot,
Yeah.
a lot of bits and
That's
pieces.
because when I got contacted him for some information, and right in the middle of harvest, I can imagine he loved that,
Yeah.
which he's probably smack bang in the middle of right now.
yes,
Absolutely.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
up to his neck in it.
Yeah.
So Brett and I, in about 2012, 2013, said we want our own
We do.
Clare Valley Riesling. We loved Clare Valley Riesling. You talked about it being a zippy style. So we gave Darryl a shout and said, can you go and source some fruit from Clare, because he's in the Adelaide Hills, and make us a Riesling that we can be proud of and call our own.
Yeah, I think also, we had
Okay,
this.
so.
We'd come up with this label, Rodney and the Horse, and we needed to put it on a bottle of something. And I think that's the key thing is that we always had this real love for Australian Clare Valley Riesling. And I think what was also the Brucey bonus is the fact that while he was sourcing fruit for the Riesling, he found some Shiraz.
Sure is.
So we
fact.
got the full package. We got a red and a white from the mighty Clare Valley.
Exactly. So he made, the first vintage of Riesling was 14, wasn't it?
Yes.
And he went, there's some Shiraz there as well. So the next year we had a Riesling and a Shiraz, and
Right.
we have made them ever since.
Yeah.
Um,
We're now on the ninth
ninth vintage,
Yes.
vintage.
which is getting shipped right now, 2021.
Wow.
So Darryl then did his own thing. He started making his own wines. He made these wines for us, and he has slowly but surely been getting incredible reviews. He's now considered one of the top sort of premium winemakers of the Adelaide Hills. Keeps getting amazing reviews from Halliday. I think they called him in the top 10 new wineries in 2016. So
Yeah.
really
Wow,
kind of
that's
making him up.
incredible.
He's an
Yeah.
amazing winemaker. So that's Darryl in a nutshell. I think we're going to taste the wines, aren't we? Because we'll get through, and then we can talk about how he makes the wines. But suffice to say, and for anybody who knows us, it's not that much of a surprise that these are made very simply. It's all about the quality of the fruit. Darryl, does like to keep, not too much intervention and really kind of make really expressive wines.
That's the word.
I remember him
Low
saying,
intervention.
the amount of time that he now spends in the vineyard has gone up massively. The more years that he's doing this, because that's where the concentration needs to be. That's where the focus is on that fruit, when to pick, being really present there to then obviously aid the journey, the winemaking journey.
It is the journey.
What should we do?
Guiding it.
2020 Clare Valley Riesling,
Yes.
Rodney and the Horse.
Yes.
Should we taste it?
Let's
taste
do it.
In we go. Into bottling Rodney and the Horse. Ooh, it's a hive of activity. Hopefully it's going okay. All the little bottles, they're getting a little bit of cleaning. Yeah, they're getting a little bit of de-aeration and a bit of nitrogen. And then around and around and around we go. And out they come, out the other end. Look at that, that's a very yellow cap. Whose choice was that, Rodney or the horse?
So while we are tasting this, we'd said that these wines are made pretty simply. Fruit comes in, it's kept cool. Darryl, in 2014, he was pretty radical, wasn't he? Because
He
used a
Very.
technique where he would allow the juice, the unfermented juice, to completely oxidize. And it oxidizes to the extent when it goes almost black.
Wow.
So you'd think, oh dear, that looks a bit
it's
knackered.
turned.
And other Clare Valley winemakers certainly then were doing their best to exclude oxygen, to keep it this pristine sort of, almost
Sure.
hermetically sealed liquid. And Darryl knew of a technique where if you oxidize the fruit very, very early on, and then basically it makes the wine, strangely though, it makes the wine very stable. So you've already oxidized it at that early stage. You then ferment it, and at the end of fermentation, all that dark colour's gone, and it's super clear.
Yeah.
But
Totally
Heard of
clean.
this.
Yeah, it cleans up.
and
It's
basically,
incredible.
Right.
at the end, that means it's already stable. You don't need to add more sulfur. So he's not adding any sulfur.
Yeah,
after
because
that
when we're
point.
talking about something not being stable, wine not being stable, a lot of it is really trying to avoid that oxygen.
Exactly.
But so once
Completely.
you've got that
Yeah.
exposure,
Exactly.
fine.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
really solid. It still has all the characteristics, but it's not prone to oxidation. So that is a cracking
It's probably the
technique.
colour.
And now a lot of winemakers in the Clare are using that same technique.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's
need
that
to top up,
technique is something that's as Charlie said, a lot more people are using it, and it's just so good not to be as he does, not throwing sulfur into it at
Yeah.
all stages. That point of that fermentation part of the process, no sulfur is needed because the wine is totally resilient to any oxygen.
Get it in you.
Get in
Yeah.
your gob. So
Yeah.
the other clever thing about what he does with this is he gives it a bit of lees time, doesn't he?
Was it 6 months?
Yeah, around about 6
Yeah.
months. So after the fermentation,
Yeah, after that fermentation, a little bit of time's on the skin.
does he add yeast for the fermentation?
No yeast.
How does that work?
Well, he gets it naturally, doesn't he?
See.
Yeah. So that yeast that's whizzing around the winery, on the skins of the grapes, the Riesling grapes, he just uses all that. That's where the fermentation automatically just fires up. He doesn't
Yeah.
go to the store and get a packet of yeast. He uses the natural yeast. It's so clever. So the great thing about using natural yeast is the fact that you get a bit more complexity in your wine, and it's can be a bit scary at times because yeast is rather sensitive, isn't it? Alex?
Yeah, it's a little bit risky.
Yeah, it can be a bit
Risque.
risky, but if you understand your vineyard and the yeast that you have naturally whizzing around, you're able to sort of handle it. But I think what's really amazing about this lees contact and that extra bit of oxygenation is that it's got this real richness, isn't
Yeah.
it? Got lovely weight,
Yeah.
but still super vibrant and fresh as.
Well, that's interesting you should say that.
Yes.
Because Clare Valley Riesling is very famous for being, as we've just described, when it's young like this, but it ages. Who knew? It ages incredibly well. I've got an idea. Should we stick some of that in the right-hand glass and
We
taste
should
it together?
do it.
Because
Yep.
there is an incredible change that happens to this wine over after time.
God, even the colour. Look at this colour.
So this
Yeah,
is
I know.
2016,
16.
so it's 5 years old, and I didn't pour myself any. God, I'm so
Missing
selfless.
You're so selfless, horse.
So, we're tasting this and it's
Gosh.
zippy and limey. It's
Yeah.
got that little bit of texture, as Brett said, and that sort of that extra little bit of weight from the lees. But it's all about kind of, what do you call this? Like a margarita.
yeah, to me it's like a a margarita without the tequila.
Yeah.
It's got the lime angle to it. It's lime-alicious, lime-tastic. It's just so vibrant.
So, what is the 2016 like then?
Yes, let's give it a go. Look at the colour for a start. It's definitely taken on a bit more of a...
I mean, so different. And
golden colour.
we've got to say that each vintage, we're making it in the same way, right? So
he's making the wine in the same way.
in the same way. So it's very much a chance to compare vintages.
It's a chance to compare. I mean, obviously, we talked about the continental climate, so you do get variation, and the biggest variation really is in what the alcohol content, how that comes up. So in the lightest of years, this is only 11% alcohol. In the heaviest of years, it goes up to 13% alcohol. But other than that, it's made exactly the same. So other than that vintage variation, we are looking at purely the difference that time makes.
Yeah.
And you smell that. And it's like, to me, it's like a kind of, buttered sort of...
Yeah, there's a
trumpet.
Yeah. There's a lactic edge to it.
There is a lactic edge, but what I love about this is
I
spotted is it has a little bit of moodiness, a little dirtiness that you get maybe like Manuka honey.
Okay.
So you get that sort of earthy Manuka honey sort of angle, but then there's that just that little tickle of sweetness that I pick up on the nozzle. And it comes through on the palate.
What's the nozzle?
The nozzle is this part of your anatomy.
Okay, right. And then when you taste it, it's for me, it's like that the oiliness. People talk about oiliness.
Oiliness, waxiness.
That's one thing that happens.
That texture.
Waxy, oily. It's got that, but then it's got one thing that I always think this tastes like is lime brulee. So you've got, like a sort of slightly rich, almost sort of dessert like a brulee.
Oh, nice.
But with
but still with that lime.
Yeah, so with that sort of underpinned by
But I totally get what you're saying, because it is like a brulee. It's got the caramelized sugar on the top.
Yeah.
It has
the creaminess
sort of,
as well.
And then you have that
the flavour of the lime
cutting through.
Yeah.
But what's also, what I love about these
Amazing.
wines, which I love what Darryl does, is the fact that there's none of that hardcore petrol.
Yeah,
which,
absolutely.
Back in the day used to be quite, a lot of people liked that sort of kerosene petrol sort of characteristic.
And still, that is a characteristic that people look for in an aged Riesling.
and they do.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of controversy around that particular aroma. We won't go into it today's session because it can be a little bit boring. But the great thing about these, fresh vibrancy.
Yeah.
And
that is not unleaded. That is like bloody lovely, oily, limey, brulee, toasty yumminess.
But it's amazing going back to the 20, and that has that real sort of that really beautiful sort of.
Oh yes, I'm loving this one so much. I'm forgetting to then go back
it's
to
just got that little hint of honey.
It's amazing. I actually had this. Sorry about this. I had this the other day. I had a sneak preview of the 2016, and I tasted it when it first opened, and then I tasted it the next day, and it would it gone to the next stage. But at this stage, it's got all those kind of richer, toastier flavours, but it's still got amazing acidity. This incredible freshness that is sort of lime.
Yeah, it's that backbone.
It's
lime.
It's lime.
Sort of
the lime's still there, and it needs it.
Yeah,
and it's yum.
So, what would you, Alex? What would you have with this?
This is a wine for every mood, isn't it? You've got one for each. You've got your generous, sort of luscious, sumptuous one, and then you've got something that's actually more of a. Could be more an aperitif for 2020.
I thought you meant if you're in a good mood or a bad mood.
But also, if you're in the cosy mood, you can go for the 16. If you're in the sort of, I need a little lift today.
I
was about to say this morning. Then go for the 2020.
About the 2020, for me, it's one of those wines that if you've had a pretty crappy day at the office, you have this to cut your day away. Totally.
We are actually covering the whole day. So, according to Alex, first thing when you wake up, drink that. Yeah. End of the day, drink that.
Yeah. So you're saying
We've got it all covered.
You're saying this should be like a Barocca?
Absolutely. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like
better
a...
than Barocca.
Oh, that
More
acidity
natural,
gets you
it's
going,
more
and the
So
mouth
listen,
watering and everything. Absolutely.
I
It's
think we
simply
need-
more natural.
I feel like a sum up is coming.
Yeah.
Because also anyone who is, well, of course there'll be millions of people watching this.
Of course.
But they'll be going, I'm really enjoying this, but I need to go out in 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
So,
we'll keep it
we're
short
going
and
to move
snappy.
to the reds in a minute. But to sum up, we got 2 of the Rieslings made the same. Actually, we are featuring them at the moment, and they're both available in our packs, which are online.
Yep.
And they are absolutely stunning, even though we say so ourselves.
Yeah.
They are
And I
bee's
think,
knees.
I think you can, as we've just spotted with these 2 different vintages, you can drink now, or you can put it away for a little while.
Cellar it away.
And this, both of these, even the
They're
16,
gone.
another 10 years for the 16,
Yeah.
another 15, 20 years for the 20.
No, it's a great sort of showcase for Clare Valley as
Yeah.
a
really
region for
Kind of unique
Riesling.
product.
Yeah,
Exactly,
because
exactly.
you know it's really now on the sort of world stage for sort of aged white.
True that.
Yeah.
Well,
So, Rouge.
Love it. Well, we've got to. Oh, I was going to say we've got to finish these before we get on to the Rouge, but you
No,
guys
we-
have already
yeah, we
done.
have. Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Well, while you're finishing off, Alex,
Yeah.
Brett, Shiraz. We love a bit of Shiraz, don't we?
Sure is. Yeah, we do. No, we do. As we said a little bit earlier, we were so lucky that Darryl had the opportunity when he was sourcing the Riesling grapes that he, pretty much, where he was sourcing the Riesling, there was Shiraz. And he just said, look, guys, I've got this Shiraz. Do you want it? We went, hell yeah.
Here we are looking at Shiraz. This is beautiful Shiraz. I think this is destined for Rodney and the horse. I think so. Beautiful, beautiful. Early stages, looking good. Really looking forward to the juicy flavours that come out and erupt into the glass. You can be rest assured that Rodney and the horse produces premium Shiraz.
But we want it in a particular way. We want it crafted in a particular way. We don't want the classic big Aussie bifters. We wanted things. We want a Shiraz that's a little bit finer. We want something a little bit more restrained in its style. And he lived up to that sort of little remit that we gave him. And this is what we've
I
got.
think we said, we wanted it, we didn't want it to pretend it wasn't an Aussie Shiraz.
Oh,
We
totally.
wanted an Aussie Shiraz.
Very
But
true.
we didn't want it to be sweet and jammy, and we didn't want it to be big and oaky. And so, but that's how Darryl likes to make his wines.
True.
But did he nail it? He certainly did. So just so I'm doing. I am.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the 2020 in your left-hand glass,
Everyone's just watching me just down
and you
2
have
glasses of Riesling
2016 in your right.
in my right hand. Thank you.
And
So
it's-
you're... Oh, sorry, Charlie, to...
Yes.
But a question that I have. You're wanting to make sure that there's a proper nod to Australian
Yeah.
Shiraz. Is that why we've kept Shiraz rather than Syrah?
It is
You
one of the
want
reasons.
to make sure that it's...
Totally. I mean, I think we
Because when you're talking about this elegant style, you
Yeah.
could
we
look
could
at it
have said
more of
Syrah.
a... Yeah.
And some people do that. You're
Yes,
quite right.
exactly.
No, we didn't want to sort of pretend it wasn't from where it came from.
Yeah.
And it's 14% alcohol. I mean, it typically is in and around 14% alcohol. So it's not a shy wine, but then again, it's not a 15 or 15.5% big Barossa kind of monster. So no, we wanted it to be Shiraz, and but we just wanted it to be absolutely drinkable, fresh, spicy, full. There's oak here, so we should say about how this is made. It's natural yeast like the Riesling, and then it's aged for about 8 or 9 months in French oak barrels.
Yeah,
Most of them
was
old.
it 20%
Yeah,
new?
a little
is
bit
it?
new,
Yeah.
and most of them are.
And 80%
But I
old.
think if you remember what this tastes like, you don't get any of that new oak. In fact, I was surprised. I thought, apparently he was using a bit of new oak to begin with. I thought it was old oak because it just soaks it all up, and you
And
get
integrates
yeah,
it. Yeah.
it adds to the texture and it adds to the kind of the roundness of the wine and gives it some seasoning.
Yeah. I think also what's clever about Darryl sourcing these wines, he sourced them from the Clare Valley, and as we said, and as you said, Alex, is the fact that there's elevation here, there's that real diurnal sort of between day and night, and you get this real fineness with these wines, especially for a Shiraz. It's so fine.
We're talking about the same grape variety and the same sunshine that we've got in Barossa Valley and Clare Valley, but the difference is this elevation, isn't it? Yeah. And that's where that freshness comes from.
Yeah, and a bunch of microclimates that you get in
yes.
an undulating situation.
It's all these little valleys, hills, and pocket soils, microclimates.
Where the wind and the breeze whizzes around.
And I think that's one big difference. If you look at the Barossa, there's much of it is produced in the kind of the quite wide valley floor, where it's got a lot of sunshine and a lot of heat. Yeah. And that's sort of the difference. And the cooler in the Barossa, the cooler area, like Eden Valley, is a part of the Barossa as a whole, and that's, as we know, much more elevated, and that's where you get the fresh wines coming from. So this is much more like this. That style. So, what we tasted first? Because I tasted
again
16.
like the Riesling, the difference between them. Yeah. Also, if anyone's got a white piece of paper or a white wall next to them and tasting these, to see the little colour difference in these as well.
Sure. There's more kind of sort of vibrant purple brightness in the
2019.
19, sorry. So what we're tasting? 19?
We're tasting the 19 because there wasn't a 2020, was there?
No, and I've been confusing everyone by saying this is the 20 and this is the 16. It's not. It's the 19 and the 16. And you're quite right. There was no fruit in 2020 because there was a terrible bushfires, and there was a lot of smoke damage to the because the Shiraz's fruit is lower down. So he couldn't source any of the Shiraz fruit, but the Riesling was fine. It wasn't
fine because it was higher up. Yeah. Right.
But 20. Brett's on it already. I've been nattering, so
I've been on it already.
So again, that vibrancy that we're talking about, the colour, it's there on the nose. I mean, it's just
it's again, and this is all. I think what's quite important about both these wines, they're all single vineyard. From one little vineyard. They're a cru. So I think that's quite also adds to the quality that these wines are punching.
And they're dry grown. There's no irrigation in these vineyards. A lot of irrigation happens in Australia, and with the main purpose of getting a bigger yield, making more wines, but the quality is literally watered down. That's not the case here. These are dry grown.
These grapes are definitely not any water drugs, are they?
Not on any water drugs. No, they're not.
But it's amazing. Again, the 19, it has that, as you said, fragrance. It's got lift. It's got perfume. And there's that finesse about it on the nozzle. And what's also quite amazing is that oak. It's just a bit of salt and pepper, isn't it? Isn't it? It's just that seasoning. It's not sticking out.
And that aging in those barrels, it's just that slow, really slow oxidation through the wood, which is porous, that brings the whole thing together and just sort of binds it and allows it the texture to be even finer and things to be even more together. But it's got lift and life and vitality, hasn't it?
Yeah, and we're still looking at 3 years old. So and it's still so fresh,
wearing itself very well.
Yeah.
Well, if that's 3 years old, that is 5 years old.
Yes, chef.
6 years old.
6 years old.
My maths is unbelievable. Yeah, this is kind of like a deeper...
Yeah, it's a bit more intense and concentrated, isn't it?
It's like dark, really dark red.
Yeah.
So in the 16, I think they had a little bit of hail. I remember sort of reading on the vintage report, which knocked out a bit of fruit. But what that gave when you do your harvest and gave the wine, it's given it more concentration, hasn't it? It's really dense and sort of moody and quite different to the 19, which is quite light.
Really different. It's more, like you say, it's more intense and kind of sort of denser. However, there's still that little perfume lift, isn't it? There's that lovely aroma, that kind of slightly floral.
Yeah,
just a
sort
touch
of
of
violets.
it.
That
Yeah,
sort
maybe
of
violets.
black
And
currant.
this
So
fruit,
it's still
you know,
coming through.
I mean,
Yeah.
often with wines, particularly with ripe New World wines, that fruit is disappearing after 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But this fruit is really
Still
very
driving
much
through,
there.
isn't it? Yeah. It hasn't turned into an animal. You know, there's none of that savoury meatiness. It's
Yeah, we might need to
still really-
explain what that means.
Well, it just hasn't. I don't smell a wild boar in there or anything, or a small
or
goat.
leather, or
Yeah.
I mean, there's maybe a touch of leather.
There's a little bit of
but it's not turned into.
No, but it's not manoeuvring into that sort of
No.
overly secondary and tertiary
Yeah.
sort of characteristics. It still has that vibrancy. It still has the
Absolutely.
freshness.
Yeah, check out the acidity when you
It's
drink
amazing.
it. It's still fresh.
It's zinging.
Really fresh.
And I think again that's sort of the Darryl's nailed.
It's
the winemaking.
it's developed and intensified, but it's still youthful, and I really love that it's, to me, that fruit's now kind of like plums, like really dark plums.
Yeah.
But
And
still,
often it can get quite stewed, but actually it's still
No,
not.
not
It's
stewed
still
at all.
crunchy
No.
plum. It's
Still crunchy plum. It is.
Crunchy plum.
It is a crunchy plum.
What do we think of the tannins?
Yeah, like
They're there.
really
I
fine.
can feel them, but they're really fine.
they're
Definitely there.
restrained. They're sort
Yeah.
of like just pulling back a bit, but they're definitely there.
Yeah.
But they're not overbearing, are they?
It's
Absolutely.
lovely.
I
So-
agree.
Horsey,
Rodney,
what are you going to eat with this?
I'm going to eat a bavette steak with
Ooh.
thrice cooked chips
And a small bit of
and Rodney and the horseradish
yes. And what's the greenery?
and some cress of the water variety.
And where can you get that fine dish from? Upstairs.
Your friendly local Vinoteca.
So anyway, where can we get these wines?
They're
Can't remember.
all available in our amazing, like stupidly generous offer that is only right to celebrate the majesty of Darryl Catlin's winemaking.
Yes, we salute you, sir.
But I mean, I think it's important as well. We've mentioned this before, but we've got a couple of other Darryl's wines that we
Yes,
shipped.
it's not. We're not just showcasing the Rodney.
No.
We are right now drinking
today,
just the
yeah.
Rodney and the
Yes,
horse.
yeah.
because we can.
But we also, because we can.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we're
because they're
also
here.
wanting to talk about his other wines that we've got on, the other two that we
Well,
mentioned.
yeah, so the Glencoe
yeah.
Shiraz,
Yeah,
the tiny
Shiraz.
single vineyard Shiraz from the Adelaide Hills, absolutely stunning. And then Montepulciano, which was, as we know, is an Italian grape,
Yeah.
but it was also grown high in the Adelaide Hills, and is just a real joy. And they're under the Catlin label. And we are, only right that we talk about Darryl and his wines. So we've just put together some selections online, and I think you can not worry about paying for any delivery. You don't need to worry about anything, actually. You just have to look forward to receiving the wines and going, I'm in
That's what
heaven.
we like to
You
hear.
deliver them for free.
No, you are.
You're
Oh,
doing
am
it.
I?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
In Zoe.
I'm delivering them for free. Anyway,
So when
it
you
won't
see
do
him
it.
coming up your garden path,
Yeah, no,
know.
please lock your door.
no, it's your wine delivery.
you won't see him. He's like a stealth ninja
Yeah,
in his electric Zoe.
Totally.
You won't even see him.
Totally. Anyway,
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. You know it.
Well, I've really enjoyed sitting down with you two. Really
Likewise.
quite
You know,
astounding people.
I
Likewise.
totally agree. And, I think we should do this again. And until next time, see you around the pool.
See you
Which
around the
pool?
pool. Oh,
Well, I don't know. Any
South Australian pool.
we'll take any pool at this point.
yeah, a pool. Some sort of pool.
Wait, I'm going to blend.
There we go. Yay.